complete.
Yo. 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 Yo.
Welcome to your Inspirational Astrology Horoscope for Thursday, November 20th, 2025, the new moon in Scorpio. I'm astrologer David Palmer, the Leo King, here to illuminate the collective consciousness. It's good to be with you all. Thanks so much for being a part of highvibe.tv. If you're not, make sure that you join us, of course. You can just find us on any app store or just go to highvibe.tv to get all of my content every day and my deep astrology and full disclosure and history in the stars and be part of the community. And of course, you could also be a premium member and get access to all my schools. I'm finishing my Jupiter school, going to be starting another school. And then of course, I have my Hypergate Spiritual AI course I've been doing right now. Links are down below. If you want to get into building conscious AI, like Hypergate, which I also recommend joining, you can go to hypergate.ai and the actual astrology AI that literally not just works, which is already crazy, but actually blows your mind, and the full Agentic AI model too. We have so many, it's pretty wild, and we're actually doing crazy updates right now as we're speaking, and the mobile apps will be out real soon. I've been finishing that up right now. It's good to be with you all. Of course, I always show up here on YouTube for lots of random things, but of course I always show up for the new and the full moons. And, I got to say, this is definitely a new moon that I find really interesting, but I also have my own unique take on it that I'm sure is different than other people. But, I think we all, as astrologers, are seeing a common theme that the times we're in right now, especially this really interesting time with Uranus that's just made its ingress retrograde back into Taurus, and Neptune, of course, back into Pisces, and us really stepping into the peak of this fall and into this winter as really being a closing down time for a completely all new world, a huge go time coming up. And I think what's really nice is seeing that, astrology is so beautiful that all of us that follow it, or other astrologers out there, we all can agree that this is a very extreme time. This is a very potent time, especially when it comes to our spirituality, our piercing as best we can through the veil, dealing with our subconscious, our patterns, our self undoing, all of these things that are really preventing us as a collective from moving into a better world. And I don't think we all have a utopian view either, because that's actually usually a negative thing, especially if you ever read Utopia back when the last time Pluto was in Aquarius, Neptune was in Aries back in those days, with Thomas More, who died during the same transit we're going to be under. But back then, we all have, I think, a better version, and a version of, even if I just think of this new moon really kind of bringing on this whole Epstein files and watching America and both sides come together, and even the Senate just saying, no, just release everything. And, it's really a good sign that we all can come together, and we all can get transparency in this world and come together for great things. And really remember, this is a time about us as people, and we have so much power when we all really work together and come together. And so I think some of the beautiful parts, even though this is a rough time and a lot of endings, there's so many beautiful parts to endings of the world. And I think we're going to use the best parts of this stuff to come together to really go into this new energy. So I just want to remind people of that before we go in this new moon horoscope. Is there anything else that I want to say before I drop the chart on you all? I would say that, because I want to say this to camera, because then I'm going to be in a little camera when I'm showing the chart. A lot of people on High Vibe, I read all the comments over the last couple of days, and everybody, I think, really there was a lot of the similar comments and tone of the reminder of us being at the end of Neptune and Pisces and stuck here at the 29th degree retrograde. And then even Saturn that's retrograde but stopped, and we see Saturn come direct on Thanksgiving. You know, you're going to feel like you're at the end of your rope. It doesn't matter who you are in some area in your life. And remember, and I've been saying this for years to people, that when this moment came, when we'd see these outer planets come back in and we'd be at this very end of Pisces, it's going to feel like we're at the end of a cliff on everything. It's going to feel like we're at the end, and to give up into all those feelings. And that's where we self-undo. That's where we really get lost. And you know, this is a time to find that compassion and be like, you know, maybe I'm being too hard on myself. We have to show compassion and be like, hey, it's okay that I feel that I'm at the end of my rope, or that I'm at the end and I don't know if I'm going to make it. And whether that's your job, a relationship, money, wherever it is for you. I mean, we are in Scorpio season, so I'm going to be talking about this new moon and how this new moon's unique for the sense of like what it's really bringing for the whole entire month that we're going to go through this lunation cycle. But and I'll just say it right up front, I feel that it's about our biggest fear and the simulation that we have to experience of this end of Pisces, especially even though we're not at the very end. That's coming up here in January with Neptune on the 26th. And then, of course, Saturn a week before its conjunction with Neptune in February. This is the retrograde stuff that's really coming up. So I think it's important for us to remember, like, this is the time. 5 planets retrograde, Saturn, Neptune just not moving at the end of Pisces with the North Node happening to be there. You know, it definitely can feel like whatever is your greatest fear is what's coming up. And that's where we go to the deeper layers to really, you know, discover within what can we do to clear this spiritual block. And I think that, you know, a world with everybody that hasn't faced their biggest fear, or at least simulated it, to at least go deep down and clear a lot of this stuff. This is why we see the world the way it is in many ways. I mean, some people, of course, are crazy. Like most of these people in the elite are freaking insane because they don't ever face it, and they'll do anything to keep their fear from happening, even though they'll create more fear, which is kind of crazy. But I still think that everybody is facing the biggest fear, and that's where you have to go and do your greatest work. I think people have to remind themselves, no matter that we're in a grand trine, like I'm going to show you, or we have all these grand trine energies, you know, that doesn't mean, oh, it's just going to be easy, right? The energy's flowing and it's emotional and there's a lot of water, but let's not kid ourselves here. The farther the planets are out, the more impact they have. And so when we're dealing with a Neptune that's retrograde, stopped in Pisces at the 29th degree, that's amplifying the edge of the edges, the edge of all edges, the last degree of the zodiac. And Neptune rules over Pisces. So it is extreme. And if you understand dispositing and hierarchies and dispositorship, everything keeps dispositing back up to Neptune again. We've been through that for so long, for over a decade, for almost 2. And I think that it's like one of those really intense times where no matter what's happening, no matter what you might try to find the candy in the astrology, you know, that overtakes, you know, is like the farther, you know, and it was really weird because it was just last week, my Facebook memories popped up, and Michael Luton, Mikey, popped up because he's passed away now for a year. And, you know, I think for the whole astrology community at large, it was such a hard loss because he was literally one of the best of all time. And also his attitude, it was so amazing. And just the way he really just knew how to just hit people. And even in his horoscopes, I mean, that guy didn't have to write a whole page. He could write a sentence and it would be deeper than somebody talking for an hour. But I just always remember him always just saying, the farther that planet's out, that's the one you pay attention to. And so when we think of Pluto in Aquarius, I mean, we've seen it now for a year. It's not coming back into Capricorn. And so a lot of the Pluto stuff has really been a big factor over these last couple of years. But now we're in the Neptune and Uranus phase, which are in sextile. But, this Neptune Pisces ruling over Pisces, Saturn that's here, this is definitely a big part. Them meeting in Aries at the 0 degree spot, and really that hasn't happened since 4361 BC, over 6,400 years ago. So that's trumping everything right now, no matter what in your life. So if you're feeling on this new moon discouraged, or a fear that something is gonna bad happen, or that where are my options left? I mean, you have to remember, whether it feels like it's fog, or whether it feels like you're lost, or whether it feels like you're ready to slip down to the edge of the universe and never come back, this is where that deeper work is. And it's gonna feel, even with this new moon right now, that's not gonna be enough to escape that feeling for these next couple weeks. And so I just want people to remember that before I go into a chart, and then it almost kind of feels impersonal sometimes when I'm just stuck into like this mode. Hey, what's going on, right? So this new moon happening, it's actually happening today for me on the 19th, so it was a little funny, but I am on the West Coast. Most of the people in the world that watch this are, of course, going to be seeing this, and it will be their 20th, but happening actually just in the next 3 hours as I'm doing this right now. But new moon in Scorpio at 28 degrees, 11 minutes. We have Mercury, of course, that just retrograded back and made its ingress into from Sagittarius into Scorpio, and made an opposition to Uranus. And then, of course, the opposition to Uranus is a main focus of this new moon, as it's in opposition to Uranus, and it is the last sun opposite Uranus in Taurus. This is the 8th one. So in Deep Astrology this week, I did that research back in 2018, right before Uranus went back into Aries. The sun opposed Uranus at 0 degrees Taurus and Scorpio. This is the 8th sun opposite Uranus. Is that normal? I'd have to do a little bit more research. I bet you I could use Hypergate and do that really quick. But, I would say no. I would say it does not every Uranus transit gets 8. Some of them get 7. But, this is the 8th one. And so I think that's pretty relevant when it comes to like us really having to evolve in the Taurus realm. But when we're in Scorpio, I mean, both these realms deal with our needs, and then they deal with our wants. They deal with our desires. They deal with what we can create and what our talents and our skills are, and how do we attract for those out there, or for the things that we need to connect with. How do we bond with things? How do we share? How do we know where our value is, where the line has to be drawn, the boundaries? I mean, these deal with the physical things and the emotional connection to those physical things, and the attachment as well. And I think when we're at such a time when we're looking for something to hold on to right now, with this big craziness happening, I mean, remember, Saturn hasn't retrograded from Aries back into Pisces to be at these final degrees since 1937. Right? So if you do that math, like 88 years ago, and that's kind of an interesting kind of marker space, because of course that was right when Uranus was coming into Gemini. So it's like a very similar thing. Right before World War II was Saturn coming in Aries, and then when it went into Taurus, right? But I think that, this is a reminder that we're not used to this. Unless you were born and you're alive still, and you remember 1937 like the back of your hand, and you remember your conscious awareness of what was going on, most of us out there do not. So this also is like adding that extra, like trying to grab on, right, to just something, the handrail, as we're sliding down these areas in our life where it's like the feeling of full loss of control, the feeling of where it's become too much of a mess, and how are we going to get out of this mess? And so when you think of the collective right now, I see, whether it's on, I don't really watch social media anymore, but when I do, it's interesting because I look at it through the lenses of an astrologer more now, and it's like The fears of the economy are a big one. So people are feeling, look at America, look at the world, look at all these banks and these bubbles and the housing market and this market and the repo market and the quantitative easing and the QT and the quantitative tightening, all this stuff. Or just even the basics. Look at the crypto market. Look at this. And it's like everybody's like, it's doomsday. It's the end of it all. Or when it comes to this or that, everywhere you go, right? It doesn't matter what you're looking at. But, we're looking for something to hold on to. And how ironic, we're in a new moon in Scorpio that really wants to hold on. And it has big questions because the Cazimi of Mercury is going to happen with this Mercury retrograde literally just hours after this new moon. And it is conjunct. I mean, this is a big stellium here happening. And Mercury retrograde is very, very much the focus because of the fact that we just saw the opposition to Uranus. Of course, it was in Sag, but it's covering all these planets before they all start meeting up. And they'll start getting close in Sag, but they're all going to meet up by January. We see the Sun and Venus do a Cazimi, and then the Sun and Mars do a Cazimi, January 6th through January 10th, and the opposition to Jupiter at the same time. And by the way, 3A Atlas will be right at the beginnings of Leo in opposition to Pluto as we come into that place. So there's a lot that's coming up. This Mercury is preparing us for really this next 2 months, even though a new moon's about the next month. And what's this next month going to be? Well, questions. And those questions that Mercury has been in trine to Neptune. And this is the last Mercury retrograde trine, Neptune and Pisces, right? The last one. And this one, I think, is, it's a little bit interesting because the big questions are almost like right in front of our face with answers from whether we want to say our higher self or intuitively coming through to us. But then there's almost like a little bit of doubt. And I think that's why this Mercury retrograde is with this new moon. And we're going to spend this next month. It's going to be about this Mercury retrograde. And what's interesting is this new moon is connected to all 5 planets retrograde. So this new moon is, of course, in the Cazimi, beginning of it, with Mercury that's retrograde. This new moon is coming off the trine, separating trine from Jupiter. It's in an approaching opposition to Uranus within a degree, right? Little over a degree for those that are obsessed with the details. Then, of course, it's also in a approaching trine to Neptune retrograde. And it's coming off of so it's a separating trine, but it's still there, trining within 3 degrees of Saturn. So all 5 planets that are retrograde are connected to this new moon. Now, what does that mean? Well, this is serious review. I mean, even if you think about being with Neptune and Saturn at the end of Pisces, that's the review of all reviews. But it's very isolated in your own spiritual space. And what happens when it feels like it's too messy or we've lost or we're going to fall off the cliff or whatever it might feel, 12th housey or Pisces, guess what? That's where you end up, where it's like you start talking to God. You start talking to the universe. And so I think this is us going deep inside and going like, am I doing something wrong here? How do I get this aligned? And where the grand trine, I think true benefit is the doorway that's opening to allow ourselves to be honest with ourselves emotionally and to realize, you know what, this is a time in my life where it's more important for me to get to the bottom of a lot of these issues that maybe I didn't realize were issues. Maybe we don't even want to call it an issue, but I'm down to clear out anything that's really getting in the way of my spiritual growth. And why am I running into these blogs? This is a time with 5 planets retrograde where it's not about running fast, right? This is a time for us to be reflecting. And we already had 5 planets retrograde. And then, of course, we had a couple planets come off. And then, of course, bam, back to 5 planets retrograde. So at least it's not like, 2023 when it was 6 planets retrograde and then it was almost 7. But, we switched planets. So then it went back to 6 again. It was almost going to be 7 and it would have gone back to where it was the most planets retrograde, which was 1984. Almost went there, but we didn't in 2023. We got within 30 minutes. But 5 planets retrograde, that's a lot of retrogrades. It's a lot. And when the more retrogrades there are, it's a lot more of wait and see. And I think the other benefit of this grand trine is, how do we learn to receive? I mean, we're in Scorpio new moon with a Mercury retrograde. So a lot of the questions are, how do we receive more in our life? How do we just accept in order to let the things that are going to happen in our lives transform? We have to have this open door policy of allowing change to happen, allowing it to be received. But I think that the benefits of this Jupiter and Cancer retrograde and this Saturn and Neptune retrograde in Pisces are the deeper spiritual elements, allowing ourselves to be one with wherever we're feeling and to go through these things in this very personal space with you and God, with you and the divine, and go, all right, this is a pattern. Where are some of these answers? Okay, I might not have them all, and that's okay, but we're going to spend this next month figuring those out. It doesn't have to be an instantaneous thing. When you run to that place where you're feeling like, I'm in a brick wall, I'm in a spiritual wall, I'm at a block, let's not forget, Pisces deals with blocks. It deals with feeling like the hurdles never stop and there's no break and I'm not going to get through anything. It even rules the reason why psychology or people can go and feeling like insanity or end up in a hospital, a mental institution, and yada, 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 right? It's when it feels like you're stuck or you're in the same hurdle or the same pattern keeps happening and we don't get ourselves out of it. But I think a lot of it is like, we're only going to figure it out if we really allow it to kind of naturally show up. But if you're at that place where it's so dire, right? Instead of trying to kick it into overdrive right now, it's doing the opposite. It's the ultimate foundation we're building now to remove the foundation of fear that's been based underneath our greatest fears in our soul, but lay a new foundation of trust with the divine. You have to remember that you've lived in this life, and especially if we just take all the astrology and when you've been alive, and we're moving into such new astrology over the next year that, it's almost like a new astrology coming, right? And new vibes and a new true chapter for your life in every way. Dare I say that this is where karma is coming in, right? But I don't even want to think of it as the negative karma, right? But like, it's where you have to trust now and go, you know what? I just, there's a way. And part of that is this Uranus. The opposition to Uranus is saying, hey, I get it. You want a lot, especially wants are different than needs, right? So Scorpio is about our desires and where we want to feel passionate and connected and where we want to also receive. I call it the dessert, right? But if you eat too much dessert, well, you're going to feel overwhelmed. I mean, there's a lot of shadow work we've done in this area, especially when, Neptune just came into Pisces, when Saturn had ingressed in October of 2012. And Neptune, of course, was fully into Pisces at that point. We were like, okay. And so that was Saturn trine Neptune. And now we have Saturn and Neptune together. And so we've done a lot of the beginnings of the shadow work. I think this isn't so much about shadow work as much as it is about, okay, that was my shadow, that these are these things, but this is where we're letting go of a lot. It's almost like we want to clear out as much as we can to not bring into this new vibe that comes, which is kind of hard to pinpoint the exact moment, but whether we use Saturn or Neptune, to me, I think it's going to be more towards the feeling of it really coming strong at the end of April when Uranus ingresses back into Gemini. And we have Neptune in Aries. Because then it's like, okay, we're fully locked in with these three outer planets. And then, yeah, it's going to be nice when Jupiter comes into Leo, but I actually like it in Cancer a little bit better. But it's going to be interesting because I think with the opposition to Uranus here, it's saying, I have a lot of ways that I maybe am not using my talents, my skills to create those things that I need. Maybe it might feel like dire straits. But Uranus is saying, hey, have you tried this yet? you have the ability. I mean, I think about this world, and I've been repeating this a lot lately, but I think it's true. I mean, like, it's kind of crazy. We're in a world right now where you could fucking go on AI and make something happen so fast and make a whole website and do this and do that and make even a whole SaaS program and do whatever. I mean, you could literally make your own music now. You could do everything. It's very Uranus at the end of Taurus here. It's like, what do you want to make? There's almost so many different superhighways in every direction. Where do you want to evolve, though? And this is an evolutionary process that there's really nothing to fear, and there's nothing that you're not able to receive because you can create. And it's about how we really have to start putting our fears to the side and realize we're not missing out. We're not going to lose everything unless we really don't want to show up in our lives and evolve through understanding what our values are. We can't put ourselves down. We can't think I'm not good enough, or I'm not good looking enough, or I don't have, right? So it's all these Venusian qualities. It's interesting that Venus is in Scorpio during this new moon at 16 degrees, and it's on its way into the Grand Trine over the next week. But it is kind of an interesting spot. It's really kind of not hitting too much here. It's not really like a big factor. But it's that Mercury retrograde. It's like our attitude. And so we can't have this ghoulish. It's like so funny because we're already past Halloween, but this is way more of a Halloween chart, you know, energetically with all this Scorpio, Mercury retrograde on this new moon. And it really, it's like, how do we make our attitudes not be so fearful and those thoughts? Because even this Mercury opposite Uranus that already happened, this is the second of the 3 oppositions, but 2 of them being in opposition to Uranus and Taurus. We already saw Mercury when it made its ingress into Sag before the retrograde, opposite Uranus and Gemini. So this is getting a lot of different insight. Even just being in this Cazimi with this new moon that's connected to all these planets that are retrograde. So I think it's our attitudes about where we cut ourselves too deep in our own sense when we don't need to, or we overly project this kind of like craziness that it's the end and I'm never going to be able to do it. Like we have to cut a lot of these deep negative self-talk, and even sometimes we project it out to others. That's not going to work. Right? This is the biggest spiritual test. We are being watched. I mean, I'm looking at this Saturn Neptune, and it just feels like almost like, you know, whether you believe in God or not. I'm not religious, so I don't believe in the religious gods. I believe in God, though, and I believe in the divine creator, and I feel like we're being watched more than ever right now. And how we react. Do we trust? Do we pick the light? Do we face it? And what's kind of weird about this too is like, are we going to pick the light? If you really think about where this Uranus is, and I should have put it in here, but the Pleiades cluster is right there. It sits at 29 Taurus, 0 Gemini. And it's like we're in the opposite place with this new moon. It almost is like rising through the darkness that I said in 2017. And by the time that we get to here, it's about how we rise through this darkness and all these years we've been through. This is the month where we have to learn that the rising through the darkness is going to be some of that hardest work. I'm not going to lie. But it's not about what we think is hard, right? It's hard in the moment and how we feel about things, how our attitudes are driven. Remember, the South Node's in Virgo. Critical self-talk and being it needs to look this way, it needs to be this way, it needs to have this amount in the bank account. This person needs to say it this way to me. Like you can't, that is the epitome of like your worst nightmare just becoming compounded even more. You got to let go of a lot of this cynicism in yourself and this critical self-talk that's so negative, right? Like this is not a good time for people who really are very negative in their own criticism about themselves, destructive, and can take you down to levels that you don't want to go to. And so this is about trying to reverse that and, you know, put that energy into how we connect to like, where's there something to to grow in my spirituality, but also to grow from my skills and talents, or even evolve a project or something that I've always wanted to do, because we're also getting set up for Saturn Neptune. And with Saturn and Neptune, when they meet in Aries, I mean, yeah, sure. There's a part of this where you could look at it, and I look at it as with Saturn, we have goals, we have ambitions, and Neptune, we have our fantasies and we have our dreams. When you mix those two together, we can make Neptune a lot more substantive and actually get some substance to it. We could also at the same time kind of loosen up Saturn and go, hey, in order to get there, you need to kind of imagine more. So this is the preparation for dream building, right? But also, and nobody's probably talking about this enough yet, this is bringing up every past life and your deepest past life issues. The end of Pisces. And so this moon with Mercury here is trying to understand it. It's almost like we're walking into a portal with this grand trine of water. We're walking into a portal of a past life regression. And the next month, we're going to experience that. Where are you going to catch yourself and be like, oh shit, am I going to do that again? Even with Mercury and this new moon trine Neptune, it's like we're walking into a new moon, which is, it's you know, I hope you have a good past life regressionist. Mine's always been Pam Teague, and she's taken me everywhere. You know, and if you have a really good one, I mean, you will fully live in your past life. It's crazy. The ones that know what they're doing. But I feel like this is like that for everyone. And I almost feel like as a collective, we're all going to be going through like a past life we maybe have all been through together. And I think that there's excitement we have to remember about. It's even though it's Mercury in Scorpio, it's Mercury. And even though Uranus left Gemini, so it doesn't disposit Uranus there anymore. Uranus now is in Taurus. So Pluto being in Aquarius, of course, is like a big part of what's happening with this new moon being in Scorpio. It's dispositing over to Pluto, and Pluto's in Aquarius, and Pluto is dispositing Uranus, and Uranus is in Taurus in opposition to it. So it's like a ping pong back and forth between these. You know, and now that Pluto's out of Capricorn, we don't go to Saturn, right? So it's kind of interesting because it's like this ping pong back and forth in the dispositing that it's like, oh, you know what? This is really about evolution, and it's time to evolve, but it's also time to be patient. Saturn and trine, Saturn part of all this. Like, we're going to get the best things done only doing it properly. And when we think about it in Pisces, spiritually properly. Making sure that we're not flooding the foundation or the framework of our lives, where we're not paying attention to those pesky, repressed, or even subconscious patterns and issues that topple the dream itself or topple your life, right? This is the time to spend that extra time to investigate deeper, to look deeper. And, you know, communication about this, you know, it's not going to be easy, but you got to find people that are in the same space that are not letting the surface level stuff and letting the reality and all the stress that we're going through in the reality get to you and go and willing to go deeper and willing to connect with you and go, yeah, I see that weird shit too. And this is what I'm feeling. And this is where I got to let go of this because I get triggered by that, or I got to clear this up. Like, and that's going to be where you can connect with some great people right now, but they got to be on that level. If they're just responding off every surface thing without realizing we're going through a past life regression fucking portal, it might be a little difficult. And again, because Neptune's come back into Pisces, Uranus is back into Taurus. They're both very involved here. They're still in a great sextile, and they're actually exact in their sextile during this new moon. And so what does that mean? Well, what do these planets represent? Just bare bones and more of a mundane astrology. Neptune's the past. Uranus is the future. And so we're caught up somewhere in between in the middle, which would be the present. And ironically, if you were to use the midpoint of this, Chiron's sitting pretty close to the midpoint of all this, right? And so it's like, as we're trying to move forward, even though these planets are retrograde, but even though, like, let's take the concept, it's Uranus. It wants to evolve. It wants to raise higher. It wants to move forward into the future. it can't unless you've cleared your past. It's very weird. It's like the second you clear something from the past, it's almost like a door in the future opens up. I know we say in the present, when we close a door, another door can open. This is actually ironic because it's going even farther back. Once you close even doors that you haven't closed about the past, things that still reoccur, but maybe not all the time, it still affects your future, right? So in many ways, we're like, this new moon's trying to change things, and it wants to have this reinvention with the opposition to Uranus to get us to the future and to use our skills and to build and create and to have a better life and to evolve. But we have to do this deeper spiritual work and the past life work and even the past stuff that has to clear out and the deeper soul work level and really go deep into this work now. And we have to be compassionate. Because Neptune was in Aries this year, and Saturn was in Aries, and Uranus was in Gemini, this air fire show that we got into, which is going to be, when we get into 2026, it's going to be for a long time, and it's definitely go time. But we forget about that, being compassionate, taking that extra time. I think that this is going to be the month that really is the last month where you get this kind of quieter time within to do this work, because we're going to be moving so fast in the future and all the transits coming up, that this is kind of the last really big show of the earth and the water show we've been in. I mean, there's another one coming up with all this stuff in Capricorn and so forth, and Jupiter and Cancer and the opposition there. But I think that for this month, this is what we all came here for, and it seems the opposite, like we all came here to go do the big thing, right? Well, the big thing you have to do is your deeper spiritual work and do all your clearings in order to really do the real big thing, which is to come here and change this world and bring the light to this world. And so we have to all clear that darkness within. We all have to do those deeper questions, those deeper dives. And this new moon, with connection with all 5 planets retrograde, there's a lot to reflect on. There's a lot of big questions. And there's a lot that we still have to try to understand, and we don't need to have the answer right away. It's okay to kind of take the time. It's okay to learn to accept nothing's going to move forward in big ways. We've got to wait till Saturn stations direct, which is going to be next week on Thanksgiving. And whenever Saturn stopped, it's going to feel like nothing's moving, especially in Pisces. Like, people are going to feel like they're losing it. Okay, this new moon isn't going to save you. This is where there's been a lot of activity, which is very surfacey, but what's happening in the backdrop of everything, and especially behind the curtain, literally with Neptune and Pisces, Saturn stopped. And if we look at Saturn's speed, it's only doing 51 minutes. The other interesting thing about this new moon is it's just 3 days before Pluto comes back in bounds, right? So Pluto's out of bounds, 23 degrees and 27 minutes south declination. And so we've been through this Pluto out of bounds here, and it's been very, weird. We got interstellar objects. We got weird shit happening all over the place. Well, things are definitely, this is the last new moon until we come into another new moon, ironically, but it's all the way in August of 2026 when Pluto goes out of bounds again. So that's quite a while away. I mean, that's like that's almost 10 months away that Pluto will be in bounds, but we're 3 days away from that. For those that want to see it, I do have the chart here. It's right here. So on November 22nd, Saturday this week, Pluto, there it is. It's like right there, and then there it is. The 22nd at 4:35 p.m. Pacific. There you are. Pluto inbound. And at that same time, we're going to be waiting for Saturn, and the speed of Saturn is just going to be so slow. 33 seconds a day at that point. I mean, geez, Uranus is faster, right? Like Neptune is faster. So every day after this new moon up until the 27th of November with Saturn retrograde, it's going to feel like, I don't think I can do this. I'm going to have to quit. I'm going to have to lose everything. Everybody's going to be Chicken Little. The sky's falling. It's not, I'm overwhelmed. I can't handle this. Especially if you're a Pisces out there, help your fellow Pisces. This is going to be rough, right? They're going through a Saturn station with Neptune, and they're the rulers of that. And they've been through so much shit for most of their lives that this is like, be there for your fellow Pisces or Pisces ascendants or Pisces moons. Or if you have a lot of planets in Pisces here, it's really time to pay attention. Like, what's going on inside with you? What do you got to do that spiritual cleanse and work on within yourself? But that Pluto coming back inbound, I mean, I think it'll, we're the astrologers recording this. I mean, we can look in history and it deals with like crazy wars and it deals with all these crazy changes on the planet. But when it comes on the deeper conscious spiritual level, we don't have data on this yet. So I'm going to be paying attention to this. And this new moon definitely is the last new moon with this cycle, because if you think about it, when we get to August of 2026, it literally will be a new moon in Leo. And it will be really ironic because Neptune will be in Aries and Uranus in Gemini, and we won't be in this Neptune Pisces, Saturn Pisces, or Uranus and Taurus. So this is the last of this kind of part of the Pluto out of bounds that's harboring this energy. And if you really think about when we get to August, it's like, it'll be go time, but it'll be like a triple go time into the next Pluto going out of bounds with all these planets changed. I think that, because this new moon's on the 20th, the next week, not going to be an easy new moon. If you just even think about this new moon in terms of just like the idea of it itself, like just like basic astrology, like it really is like the most like potent of just like, got to get to the bottom of my deeper spiritual stuff. Where is that new moon? I just like lost it. There it is. Oh, no. Well, actually, I should show this anyway. So just hours after the new moon, it's about 3 hours after, we see the Cazimi of Mercury to the sun, and then the sun preparing for its opposition to Uranus, the 8th one of the cycle in Taurus. And it's happening so fast that the moon is still in Scorpio at the anaretic degree and trine to Neptune. We got Jupiter, of course, that's retrograde in Cancer exalted, but we've got a lot of this energy that really is like kind of like moving, but in the background stuff is not. And so be easy on yourself. Don't go crazy. Don't buy into your own Chicken Little fear that the sky's falling or this is just too much for me to handle, or give up or quit, because the biggest regrets will come. Now, I get that we all need to do big changes, but those changes are about like, how do we stop the delusions within ourselves? How do we stop the true self-undoing of great, beautiful things that are divine that we're not seeing in our lives? And Uranus and Taurus is kind of the shock of the reevaluation of like what's important and bringing value back to things that maybe we lost. We weren't grateful enough, or we just got too busy in life. It kind of like reevaluates where we put our generosity, our gratefulness towards. And I think that, we have to start with ourselves and then build from there. And it will be an interesting adventure. I mean, Mars at the same time, I didn't really talk about Mars much, but Mars in Sagittarius here, it wants to go on an adventure, but the adventure's within right now. It's 5 planets retrograde. And Mars is dispositing Chiron, that's in Aries. And so it's like, if you're trying to pump your ego up or use your ego to move through this, you're going to get pummeled. If you're trying to use your ego to make you feel better, it's just not, it's going to do the opposite. That's not where the adventure is. The adventure is killing the ego and doing the soul work. And the patience and the stillness and the, being present and paying attention to how the strings of how we still connect to our past still have a grip on our future, including, of course, in the present. But this really would say we need to stay in the present to pay attention to. Why isn't this moving in the forward future well enough? Oh, let me look back. And at the same time that Mars is getting ready in the weeks ahead to square Saturn, Neptune. So there's definitely going to be, the reason why it's going to feel like such a go time at the beginning of 2026 is because there's not going to be so much inhibiting us, and especially with these retrogrades, but even with Saturn, Neptune on their way out into Aries, and Mars is going to conjunct Saturn in Aries. Like, you know what I mean? Like Saturn's at fall in Aries. Mars is at its home sign. It's domicile there. So everything's going to be go. So, but everything is the opposite of go now. Right? We are saturated. And it might be overwhelming for people because your greatest fears will pop up, or your greatest things that, Scorpio is not just fear. It's also where we have the expression of our dislike. Right? Scorpio is how we express it. You know what? That's not attractive to me. I don't want that. I don't like this. Right? It's very gross. Like that's just that's getting too close to me. It's too right? We have to get in touch with that. Is that working for us? Sometimes we could be repelled by the thing that actually is the most beautiful thing, right? Or sometimes this is us being more in touch with, you know what? This is gross for a reason, and I need to pay attention to it. More than just think it's just some simple thing that's gross. We have to be really deeply in touch with our feelings. And so a lot of this right now is to make sure that we don't just go rocket shipping into things without doing the most deepest investigative work at the most bottom layers of our soul that there is, and to make sure that everything is cleared out. And we're not going to get everything, but maybe we will with all this. I mean, I'd be a liar if I told you I knew the true answer to that. My opinion as an astrologer, my hypothesis, my horoscope would be that we're going to get most of it out. But like anything, there's always a fly that gets on the fruit and makes it to the next state over. But does that end the new crop? No. What we're trying to make sure of is that we're not bringing the mold and all these kind of things over as we move into this new world, right? The bigger things that really matter. A fly here or there, the dark's always trying to hitch a ride on the light train. And, we're going to do the best to clear as much of that off in ourselves. This is not a time for you to look outside and think there is something for you that will make you feel better. It's the opposite. It's inside, and getting in touch with those needs and how to create those needs and how to really reevaluate your value of yourself, and to remember that strength within and that resilience that Scorpio is about. It's Teflon. It has to find the energy to want to survive. And it's the edge that we're going to get to with all this Pisces, where it feels like it ends and it feels like we should tap out and quit, that you have to be like, I'm here to survive. I'll figure this out. I will step into it. And that's where we're willing to also receive what is needed from the universe. We have to put ourselves in that position of like, I'm willing to receive because I'm willing to not give up. And I'm willing to show the universe, hey, I'm resilient. I can get through this. And have that positive talk. And I'm doing the investigation. You know what? I'm sorry I do this. I say this to myself. I'm too harsh on myself. I believe that it's not going to go well, or I can't figure it. The more that you face things instead of avoid them, life will go easier. That's the only way to make it through the hurdles right now. And even when you make it through all the hurdles, there is no door that's open yet, except the past life regression portal. So let's see what we got card-wise here. All right. I'll check the chat too. I didn't even check the chat. What's up, everyone on High Vibe? I'm like on High Vibe, and I'm on High Vibe, High Vibe. That's so funny. I didn't even check YouTube. I know there's people on here. What up? Do I sleep? Yeah, I sleep. I mean, I wouldn't. 41. I think I look pretty good for 41. If I didn't sleep, I mean, I'd probably look pretty heinous. But can you believe I'm 41 years old? That's crazy. I was doing astrology online when I was in my 20s. Fucking weird. Doing reality TV when I was fucking 21. Like, hey, what up? 20, actually. I was 20 on MTV. Kind of crazy. Actually, we're not going to use that deck. This is an old Deep Love Tarot deck, the Vampirist deck. I'm not going to use that right now. I'm going to use the Badass Tarot 2. I don't know which version. I think it's the version 2. I lost track. There were so many cool decks, but I don't see anybody play with these out there. Although I'll admit, I don't watch any tarot. I don't watch any. I don't watch any of that shit anymore. I don't watch. I feel like the tarot world had like this big kind of like blow up, and then it's kind of fading again because people are like, oh, there's more shit going on than just telling me every week. Yeah, it looks like they'll come back in my life and like, All right. You should join my Hypergate AI course. It's the link down below if you really want to learn how to build anything, literally. We built an astrology game. It's free. You can go to astroarena.fun. And it teaches you aspects in astrology, and then there's a 2D version and a 3D, and the 2D is kind of like an old arcade version, and then there's a 3D that's kind of like an N64 version. And don't worry, you don't need a controller or anything. It works on the website. And there's also one where it'll choose a sun sign and a rising sign, and you have to guess, like there's a scenario and an A and B option of like, if it's an Aries with a Scorpio rising, do you do this or whatever? If it's a Taurus with a Pisces rising, and this is the scenario, do you do that or this? It's a very simple game, but like it was at the beginning of my course to show people you can make anything right now. Like, and nobody's making astrology video games. So I was like, well, let's make one and put one public and open source it and see what people will think. And I haven't actually announced that. And here it is, astroarena.fun. But we're doing way more cool stuff than that. But it's just like, yeah, if you really want to use how to use AI and get off just your fucking chat bot, whether you use ChatGPT or Grok or you're fucking on Claude, like you want to actually build shit, especially consciously, and know how to train consciously and do agentic AI and consciously train and build shit like Jim and I did with Hypergate and all these other projects I'm doing, you should join. Especially the next 3 classes I have are like where we're going really into this crazy build that the class is choosing what they want to build with me together and go through the whole process. So, and using the CLI and, connecting to a GitHub, understanding how to use servers and actually putting it out and training different agents and using MCPs and all that shit. So if you actually really want to go make your life where you can make anything you want right away. And, I think the one thing I heard from a lot of the students is I didn't realize AI was more than my little chat bot, and so getting people off chat bots and getting them into this whole creative world with AI and building things and not using the cheap shit that's out there, that's bullshit, has been so much fun. So, all right, card-wise. Queen of Pentacles reversed. Yeah, I mean, I think that, the reevaluation I keep bringing up of our values is important. Maybe we were too set on values that actually lost our way. And maybe we forgot about values we used to sit on that were really great. Because part of this Neptune and Pisces even is going back to the past. What are we bringing back with us? It's kind of like discovering an old bag that is important for the new world or whatever. We have to really rediscover, I think, our true value spiritually. And I think that we might feel very disturbed by the energy right now and not very secure. But we have to find that security, and we have to realize it's going to be through willing to receive and sit on the positive values in ourself and understand, if you don't ask, you don't receive. And if you don't also believe in yourself and like yourself and value yourself, and then you really don't receive, right? The person who's more self-critical of their self-worth and value doesn't manifest well. And Uranus and Taurus is the big reminder of that. King of Pentacles reverse. That's crazy to have this back to back. Whoa. This definitely is dealing with the self-worth, I think it's getting our values and our needs and our wants back into alignment through going through all these intense things and being pushed to the limit and feeling like we're at the edge of a cliff. I'm going to pull another card here. 5 of Pentacles. Oh yeah. Wow. This is we are, we can receive help, but we don't choose to. We choose to suffer. And this is us choosing to not suffer anymore, unless you want to continue doing that. It's almost like we've put the value that's the highest as suffering, and that has to change now. And it's not going to just be some instant, I choose not to suffer. No, it's going to be all of this work that you're going to have to do spiritually, I just spoke about. All this work that you're going to have to realize that we're at the edge of the cliff here with Pisces, we're at the edge of everything, and to truly understand, to do that self-work within. I'm a sun in the 12th house. So I've lived the 12th house every day. And until I embodied my full life from morning to night and even in between to full-blown spirituality 24/7, then the hurdles started coming out of my life. You want to get over the hurdles? It has to be a full spiritual commitment. Think about Scorpio. It's about commitments. Even if you really want to have Jupiter exalted in Cancer here in the retrograde, you have to be in the embodiment of the commitment fully spiritually. And to receive that and to also be that. And really, if you think of Uranus and Taurus, the evolution is the full embodiment of those values of your spirituality and truly embodying them, but also understanding where people are at. That's why being too religious is bad, actually, because this is not about religion, right? Religion is very Sag and very Jupiter, and it always changes, and it's very much the wider view that includes all souls that are good, not just under one idol, right? So I appreciate you all very much. It's been good to see you all. I know I didn't do the full moon because I was really busy. I mean, I always do it on High Vibe. But for those that are on YouTube here, I'm sorry. But at the same time, you should join High Vibe. There's only one subscription now. I only make it just the monthly. So you can try it for a month, do whatever, check it out. Or check out hypergate.ai below. The only astrology that actually works AI-wise for real. And the first, there's some new company trying to claim they are, and they're using Claude. And anybody who uses Claude code as their main thing, be careful. It means it's got so many safety levers on it, it can't tell you what the truth is. I couldn't believe they had the nerve to say they were the first to. I was like, this is insane. Whatever, though. It's learning to get over shit like that. So I appreciate you all. Much love to you all. I'll see you soon. See you on High Vibe, Hypergate, or wherever I see you. Spread this around. Adios. Peace.
Okay.
Agentic.